Welcome to The Hidden World of Women, a podcast brought to you by Women's Health and Wellbeing Services. My name is Emma and I'll be your host for today's episode. So today I'm joined by another absolutely amazing woman, but before I get started, I will just say that we have changed the names of the people who we're speaking about purely for the sake of protecting people's identity. And I will also offer a trigger warning as well. So today we are speaking about experiences of family and domestic violence. So just want to let you know before you get into the episode that there could be things discussed today that may create some emotional responses. But before we get into that, thank you so much. There is an amazing woman sitting across from me right now, Cassie. Now, Cassie is a mum to 7. Now, 3 of those children are her biological children, and 4 are children that she has, let's say, collected along the way. I
would say that, yes.
And that's
accumulated, maybe.
That's it. Hopefully you've reached capacity, but you never know. I think the heart has
yes,
capacity.
I do. Yes, I do.
So Cassie describes her life as living in a funny farm. It's my absolute favourite kind of household. So along with the 7 children, she also has 2 dogs, some chickens, a parrot that doesn't stop talking. And Cassie says that she loves camping and she loves the beach. So thank you so much for joining me today, Cassie.
Thanks for having me, Emma.
I'm so incredibly grateful. So you have had experiences with family and domestic violence.
Yes, definitely. Yep.
So I guess one of the things that I often say to people is, we didn't know that he was going to be like that. Well, nobody becomes abusive on the first date.
Correct, definitely.
So tell me how you met Adam.
Okay, well, I went to high school with him. Mm-hmm. So he was the naughty boy, he was the cool boy, and I was just just blended in. And once he started taking a little bit of interest in me, it was like, wow. But yeah, when we hung out all the time and we spent a lot of time together, and he became my best friend, and he was a good man. He grew into not so much, but yeah. So that's right. You don't actually know you're walking into a violent situation at all.
Yeah. And I think, if they were violent on the first date, you wouldn't go for a second.
Well, you'd be silly, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, this is true.
Or desperate. Yeah. Either way.
Also. So tell me about what the relationship was like to start with.
Well, the relationship was amazing, to be honest. We were best friends. We grew up together. We had the same interests. We both loved camping, the beach. We were just kids. He was in the same year. We met in year 9. So, you're just a baby. You're so oblivious to the outside world when you fall in love at that age, I think.
And you grow up together.
You do. And that's the thing. You do all those little achievements together as well, like buying a house, buying your first car even, and going for drives and doing all those things. And we spent every single day together, and we were best friends, and it was good. It was, yeah.
It's always so interesting when people meet someone and fall in love when they are still babies.
Yes, I steer my children far, far clear from that avenue. But you can even see, I know I've seen one of my boys fall head over heels for this girl, and down the track she found someone else, or they're just kids, and it broke his heart. Yeah. And I'm like, well, it's not such a bad thing, because it's nice to grow and find yourself, I think, before falling in love. And
so you fell in love, and then you did it a little bit backwards. You fell in love, had babies, then got married. Of course.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had 2 babies, then got married, and then had another baby. Yeah. So, yeah, you got to do everything, You've
got to do it your own way.
Yeah, that's right. It's good to be an individual.
At what point did you start to see some cracks show in the relationship?
Look, I would probably say I put up with a lot that many would just go, oh, that's not accepted. But I think when you have so much history and so much love for somebody and so much financial investment, you sort of overlook little things. But I would probably say when my my middle boy was probably about 9 months old, and just cracks started coming through. There was no support, and then it just rolled on from there.
So did it start with physical violence?
Definitely not. Definitely not. I would say the jealousy was probably the biggest thing. I feel for me that's another total different topic, but it is accepted if it's spoken about, controlled and agreed upon. But the jealousy was just out of this world. And then it was the control of where I was, who I was with, what time I got home, what time I read a text message. And then if minutes didn't align, I would then have the coming home to having to explain, my whereabouts within those minutes. And then rolled on to putting a GPS on the car, and
wow.
It was just all these little things. And then the money, I was never allowed access to money. I had to ask for everything, even food for the kids or how much shopping money. And then you just start living on eggshells, and you start living at that higher, anxiety. Heightened stage, definitely. So you start noticing all this, and then you're noticing other people not having those confrontations or having that in front of them. So you start realising, hang on a sec.
And that's difficult because you had been with him from such a young age.
Yes.
Is it normal that your partner wants to know where you are every minute of the day?
Yeah, I think, it's normal to a certain degree, but it was...
Oh, no.
Yeah, but, I think it's nice to sort of have that understanding of it. It's good to have that, okay, this is what I'm up to today, this is what you're up to today. But, yeah, I think when
At 3 minutes past 5.
Yeah.
This is why,
Yeah, and, why didn't you read my text message? So, because I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old in the car, and I'm stopping them from putting tomato sauce all over the seat. So, it's...
Yeah.
And there was never any understanding. It was just he was always in suspicion mode or thinking something was happening.
And did you know that he'd put the GPS on the car?
No.
When did you find that out?
Not till years later, and it went to court.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It blows. All of these things still blow my mind. And it's quite a common occurrence.
It is, and I think the more you actually talk about it, the more women know it's okay to talk about it. And as you said, accumulating these kids, one of those kids has been exposed, and it's funny. I picked up when she was coming around that something wasn't right. She never come to me. I spoke about it, and it was just I felt I had that inner experience, I guess, of reading how her body language was, and the way she spoke about her stepfather and also her mother, and it's just like something's not right here.
Yeah.
So I think the more we talk about it and are aware of it, it's nice just to have an ear that listens,
and to know that people will listen without judging.
Oh, correct. I mean, the thing is, unfortunately, people are always going to judge or form their own opinions, and when you're in such a defeated state, you really are on awareness of that. Yeah. So the protective walls go up, and you end up living 2 lives. Yeah, and that's really hard.
I struggle to live one life.
Yeah, I know. I would love to choose the second life, but that one that you have to go home to. Yeah.
So it did escalate to the point of physical violence?
Yes, it did. Physical and sexual. Mm-hmm. And just the point that I got where I knew that this had to end was when my kids were being brought into the situation, and they were on the firing line, and they were on the front line of it all. And I tried to get out so many times, and I did. I left once and was forced back financially, and unfortunately it escalated from there because he knew I had told people. Yeah. And then from there I was actually frightened for my life.
And that is the most dangerous time for people
Correct.
in family and domestic violence situations. It's when they're getting ready to leave or when they've just left.
When they've just left, yeah.
So you had 2 children when the violence started.
Yes.
And you married him anyway.
Yes. And I know that sounds so silly to somebody who's sitting there going, I just don't comprehend why women stay and I just don't get it.
And I just want to preface this with, we spoke off air that I'm not asking, there is absolutely no judgment in this whatsoever.
Yeah, no.
But
it's a question. It's a question in many people's heads, like, or even why would you continue to go and have another child? Well, I guess there's so many factors in that. One, for me, I was very young. I fell pregnant at 21. I had my eldest by 22. It was all I knew. Mm-hmm. It was my safety net in a way, and I know that sounds silly, but it's also the family that comes behind that one person, those, people that you look up to as parents because you were only a child and you grew with them, his siblings, cousins, and being such a close, because we were such a close family, you feel like, well, one, you're going to lose them. You don't, they're their support. They were my support crew in a way, because the parents were the only parents that I could tell. They were the only 2 people I could tell were his parents. So, and then going on to just wanting to feel like a sense of belonging and having the same surname as my kids. And that sounds so silly now. Like I say that out loud and sometimes go, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? But I think you just accept that as life.
Yeah, and like I said, it doesn't start straight away.
No, or every day. No. It's just here or there, and you think, oh, he needs to go and see a counsellor, or maybe he needs some help, or mental health is a big thing, and I can support him. And then I think the more and more you accept, you sort of just keep accepting that next step.
And you remembered who he was before.
Oh, I held on to that.
Yeah.
I just hoped for the moment that I'm going to get my best friend back. Yeah. Or the respect from my best friend. That's the thing.
Yeah. And then you fell pregnant with your 3rd child?
Yes, yep. So fell pregnant with my 3rd child, and at that point he was obsolete in the parenting situation.
I can cut this out.
Mm-hmm.
Was she conceived consensually?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I actually wanted 4 children. I did.
Well, luckily you got 7.
Well, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I'm sure my body's thanking me too. But no, I just, as a young child, I've always wanted to be a mum. I love nurturing. I love caring for. It's all I thought about. And then, so I had my 2 boys close together, or we had our 2 boys. They're 2 years apart, and then I wanted a break and I wanted another 2, but things had escalated by that stage. And when I had my daughter, I think I'd also started to mature and realise what I'm actually bringing these children into, which is another thing I curse myself for every day and feel so guilty. And, as we all do as women, we constantly criticise ourselves so much. And I think that's where we also go, well, this is why you don't talk about it, because we're so hard on ourselves.
We are our own worst enemies.
We are. Yeah. And then you're exposing potentially somebody else to do the same. And that's when I think people just deal with it, don't they?
Yeah. And, that's one of the reasons that we're having this conversation, is to try and, the more we can talk about it, the more we can make it socially acceptable to actually talk about it. That's it. We can raise awareness. We can let people know what would be useful in this situation, or what's helped somebody, or what's really not helpful in those situations.
I know. So. And, that one huge thing that I would love to see more of, just those little cards that have crisis care, or all the helplines on there, because I honestly felt I was so alone. I knew my family wouldn't understand. His family had accepted it and just kept saying,
making excuses.
Making excuses, yeah. And it wasn't until, like, I was in counselling, and it wasn't until one day my counsellor actually slid across a piece of paper and it had the domestic violence circle on it. And she knew I was in denial and I could never label it. So she said, I want you to read that when you get in the car. And I remember opening it and reading it, and I was reading going tick, tick, tick. And then it was like weight had been lifted off my shoulders because it actually had...
It's got a name.
A name. Yeah. Or I'm not just making this up in my head, or I'm not just dramatizing it, or maybe I should just do something to make him happier, or, and from there I just thought, and then I found one of those cards in my doctor's surgery, and honestly, it did save my life in the end. Crisis care did step in, and I'm so grateful. And if any woman needs just to talk to anybody without having to go to that next step of making the move to get out, crisis care, the women's counselling, they're just amazing, amazing humans that sit on the other end of that phone and somehow just know what to say to get you into a clear way of thinking and let you know that everything is going to be okay.
And I think, somehow they know what to say because they hear it often. You aren't
often.
alone.
I know.
And while that's devastating, sometimes it can be really useful to know that you're not the only person going through this.
Correct, yeah.
And so I will make sure that I've got those phone numbers included in the show notes for today as well.
That would be beautiful.
And it's really useful for me to hear because I'm going to make sure that we have some of those cards printed up with all of the different numbers on it. I'm going to leave them everywhere. So.
I know. I actually gathered a lot. There was this lady at the police station that when I made my first report, she had a whole heap on her desk, and I actually made a thing of it. I asked her if I could take them, and I went around to all the doctor surgeries and just dropped them there, and I put them up on the pin-up boards because it could just be that one person that just needs to talk.
Yeah.
Because it saved me. It really did.
That's it. And if that running around saves one other person.
Oh, my goodness.
It's totally worth it. Yeah. So before you left, what was it? Well, I guess before you left the first time, what was it like? What actually helped you leave that first time?
I don't think anything helped me leave, to be honest. I think it was one thing being pushed around and bullied and, put down constantly and screamed in your face, or your, furniture going across the room, or, I think that's one thing. But I was sexually assaulted. Mm-hmm. And I think that took me to a different level emotionally on how I can deal with this. And
different kind of
being
violated.
And that was the first time I rang the police, even though there were so many times his parents used to say, just call us and we'll come and help clean up the mess and clean you up. And that was them just me feeling that it should be accepted, because these people have... they have this life altogether. From my point of view as a child, they're married, they're together, they've got family, they're all close. And I put a lot of trust into these people. But
so can I ask about that? Like, when did you first tell them, or how did they first find out that this was happening?
Because they were very close to us, and my children were their first grandchildren. We've seen them all the time. So... and as it was not so much his dad, he wouldn't do it in front of, but because his mum always just made excuses, accepted, I just tolerated, and she would have known from pretty much when it started. And little comments, she would come over for the day and play with the kids, and he would treat me quite rudely, or and that's the thing, it just starts off with the little comments, or it starts off with me picking up his mess, or me being not validated at all within the home. and spoken about to her rudely. And, you know, she'd say, oh, you know, you don't treat your wife like that. And then it escalated, and she sort of just kept saying, well, you know, we'll help you. And
did it ever happen in front of her or in front of them?
Never physical abuse onto me or the children, but like breaking stuff or mainly my things, which is what they generally. I've now sort of starting to realise that that's a pattern.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to break my own stuff.
Oh,
That's
no,
mine.
that's right. But I don't
that.
think they care when they're at that stage. You
Yeah.
know, there's no value on anything. If they don't value another human, you can't value a possession, can you?
Stuff, yeah.
So, but yeah, they would have known for a long time. And as it did escalate, she sort of made more excuses. But yeah, when he'd actually gotten quite rough with me the time before, and they came over and they said, look, you need to ring the police next time because we can't deal with this.
Yeah.
And then the next time was when he sexually assaulted me, and I knew I'm not doing this. You know what? This is one step that just can't be taken away from me.
Yeah.
One thing, I mean, you can't take that away.
Yeah. And what was it like going to the police? How did that?
It was horrific.
Yeah.
It was really horrific. So this is how it all panned out. So he made the children, my two boys, stand there and watch, even though prior to being actually sexually assaulted, many times he would make me strip down and stand at the end of the table while the kids ate their dinner, and he ate his dinner that I'd cooked for. And as I moved, you know, I'd get abused or hit because I'm trying to cover up. If I ever tried to put my clothes on, then that was just something that I was going to, you know, have to pay for. And my kids, I just remember, was just sobbing at the table because I knew this wasn't right.
Yeah.
And mum's upset. And I just got to the point where I had to black everything out and just look at my kids and just tell them it's all okay, eat dinner, because if they didn't eat dinner, they'd probably get thrown across the room or thrown at me or something. So I'd be like, you know, eat up, it's all okay, everything's going to be fine. And then once he's had his, I don't know what it is, but and he would leave the house, you know, I'd obviously get dressed, but comfort the kids and to say, you know, this isn't how it should be, but you know, you guys just, mum's okay. And
oh, that's horrific.
Yeah, but so when I actually got sexually assaulted, I remember I told him, I went and hid, scrambled, and I was hiding in my cupboard and had my mobile phone, and I rang, and my kids were screaming in the background because he'd gone into their rooms and dragged them out or done something. But so the 000 could hear it all. An hour and a half later, the police came. And in the meantime, I was scared because I'd made that call. Yeah. And I knew there was going to be repercussion of me exposing him now to authorities. So he went outside and I just locked the doors and we just sat in a room and no one came. And then...
That must have been the longest hour and a half of your life.
It was actually humiliating. Yeah. Because something horrific has happened to me and something that...
Feels like nobody cares.
You've violated. Yeah. You know, even though he's your husband at the time, it's a violation and you feel so dirty. And I honestly understand when you see movies and the ladies are trying to scrub themselves. Yeah. It's not because... You know, it's just a really sad, deep feeling of darkness, and you just can't explain it. But I ended up bringing his parents, and so his parents came, and I told him what had happened, and he was still outside. He was happy to sit outside. So Adam was still at the property. Yeah. I'm inside with the children. His parents have entered the house, and we're all sitting down talking about it. And his mum 100% believed me. And I said, look, I've rang the police, but they haven't come. And then his dad just said, are you sure?
Do you think I could be getting it wrong?
Do you
Is
know?
there confusion here?
Yeah, I think it was, do you know you're actually going to be putting on a criminal record to my son? So, you know, and I remember I flipped at him and I just said, get out of my house.
Yeah.
You cannot come into me, get him and say this stuff into my own home. And then Adam seen me having a bit of confrontation, so he came in all angry and it just escalated from there. The police came after a little while and pretty much just said to me, there's a lot of paperwork to do for this.
Do you want me to get you a pen?
Have I, made anything up, or have I... so in that time, I just felt like nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they gave him a 24-hour move-on notice. What's it called? A
VRO?
No. Oh, gosh, no. No, a something order. Anyway, he had to stay away from the property for 24 hours. So
24 whole hours.
24 whole hours. So I had 24 hours to sort myself out and my children out.
And you were at your best at that time to be able to be making those decisions and to be able to be seeking support. Yeah,
and
totally.
At this point, the police, no form of understanding that there are numbers like crisis care. I was just blind. I just thought that the police were going to come and help me, like you do on the movies, you know. Or growing up, you think everything's going to come along and save you, and
So, what year was this?
This was 2015.
So about 7 years ago. So we're not talking about something that happened in the, the 1970s or the 1980s,
gosh, no.
something like. We're talking about this is the very recent past.
Correct. Yep.
I'm horrified that so recently they weren't offering you support like local refuges or
that's right.
advocate workers or
exactly.
It's absolutely horrific that you didn't have access to that and that they went, oh look, this is a lot of paperwork, you sure you want to go through with it?
And you keep in mind this is like 2:00 in the morning, so they're probably,
and your children are traumatized as well.
The children are absolutely traumatized, and here I'm sitting justifying myself to two grown
men.
Well, that's right. And you just go, okay. So that was the outcome. No after support. Me feeling like I've overreacted or I'm dramatizing something, which in myself reassures my feelings, because you tell yourself every day, this is just how
it's not as bad as I think it is.
Up, just soldier on. So everything's sort of being reassured there.
I sort of don't have words, which is quite unusual for me.
Yeah, well, that is true.
So the police, they left and you're left alone with 24 hours. Did
Correct.
You leave?
Definitely the next day I left. Mm-hmm. So by this stage it was, 3-4 o'clock in the morning. And believe it or not, as my kids did every day, they knew to get ready up for school the next day and go on as usual, because this was nothing abnormal apart from the, where it had escalated. I did leave, and I remember I got them off to school and I came home and I've already had a list sorted what I needed to take. Now keep in mind, my thoughts here were he's going to leave the house. This is mine.
That's what they show you on the TV, isn't it? You change the locks and they go away.
Yeah, well, once there's a police report and something such a horrific event, it's the children's home and safety and security, and I was the main caregiver. Yeah. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, we'll just pack, a week's worth of clothes and everything's going to be fine. And then I thought, well, where can I go? Like, actually, this is what we need to start thinking about. And I rang my parents, and I remember my mum, she's so old school, but and yes, it's something that I've had to overcome. and a lot of hours in counselling has had to help me get through that. But she said, so I said, police came last night. They've removed Adam, and he's been quite violent to me, and the kids have been exposed, and I have nowhere to go. Can I come and stay with you guys for a little while? And she said, oh, okay, love, I'll just talk to your dad about it and I'll give you a call back. So I hung up the phone and I just burst out crying because, the police aren't. Yeah, but the police aren't there to validate it. Your in-laws aren't there to validate it, which that you can sort of make excuses for. And then when your own blood says, I'll give you a call back. And don't get me wrong, of course we were allowed to go over, but it's just that.
It's that you had to ask permission and you were allowed to go over, not just, you couldn't just rock up on their doorstep with your
open.
bags.
And we stayed there, but, my silly thoughts of, the authorities and the people that we think are there to help. Unfortunately, there's so much red tape, and that's what I've later learned. Yeah. I was there for I was out of home for a lot longer. I was homeless for a lot longer, let's say that. So 4 weeks I was with my parents and my dad. I remember this, very old school, and, I'd worked really hard, and there was a lot of investment in that house. And he just said, you got to face the music and go back and fight for what's yours. So he was thinking of the investment side.
Of the money rather than you.
But I don't think, because I hid it for so long, no one actually knew the extent, know. And don't forget that they've brought this boy up as well. Yeah. He's like their child, because when you've known someone for that long and you've seen him grow into a man and you're not being told about any of this stuff, it's really hard to put that into perspective.
And that's often something that we hear about and that we see is the version. So, you live two versions of your life.
Definitely.
There were 2 versions of Adam as well. So there was the version that, charismatic and the popular boy that turned into the popular man. And that's what everybody saw. Yeah.
And because, we weren't financially quite comfortable, that was the boy that had all the toys. That was the boy that, was the fun, outgoing, but people closer to him also knew the dark side.
But he was a family man, so that's what other people saw.
Correct.
Was they saw him taking the kids to school. They saw him at sports day and those kinds of things.
Well, he never ever once went to a sports day, except for the time that it was all unraveling. Yeah. Never once went to the school. He was, and this is the thing, right? I think myself, I portrayed him as the family man that I wanted other people to see. Yeah. And you build that up in your head so much that you actually think, because he goes to work, which that was in and out of work. But anyway, when he does all these things, you go, yep, this is how it is. And we bought our, second house together, and this is all just moving forward and growing and, all of those things. But it wasn't until it hit court and I was in... I forget the name they call him, but you called into a conference room and you just they ask you questions. So it's a court memorandum or I don't know. Anyway, and I remember him asking me, is he a good dad? And I was like, yep. And then he's like, well, explain to me, what do you mean? And I said, do they take him to sports? And I'm like, no, he's never taken him to sports. Does he watch their sports? No. And my kids are big on sports. Yeah. Does he take him fishing or do this or that? And I'm like, no. And he goes, well, when is he actually interacting with this child for you to say that? Doesn't cook dinner, doesn't, cook or clean or anything for him.
Family bonding. He makes them sit at the dining table and watch him humiliate their mother.
Well, yeah, that's right. Exactly. Well, I didn't think of that at the time. Yeah.
But, I'm not sure that would have gone in the plus column.
I know. Exactly. But, I'm thinking to myself, I'm just trying to find the reasons that I actually had
Why did I
this
stay
in my
and
mind.
why-
Yeah,
yeah.
but even just have that thought, he is a good dad.
Yeah.
But, I said, because he sits out the back and he watches them kick the footy. And he goes, but does he get up and kick? And I'm like, no, he'll sit there with a beer. And he goes, that is not parenting. That is not being a good dad.
Yeah.
And I remember going, you don't really get it. And then I thought about it and I'm like, you know what? You're so right. Like everything that he didn't even change nappies, bath them, nothing. And I just always thought that that's all okay. So I was making excuses, continuously making excuses.
Trying to keep adding to that picture of
it's okay, or justifying it to yourself. Yeah.
And to other people.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And the hard part is that then when you do share that with people, you're going, well, that's not fitting with this picture that I have of Adam and what you're telling me. They're not marrying up.
No, that's right.
And that makes it so much harder as well.
Definitely. And for people who aren't close and see the way we even because when you get to this point, you're not exactly affectionate to each other in other people's company. In my mind, I'm just on eggshells watching how much he's drinking. Is anything upsetting him? If the kids annoyed him, is one of the boys being too loud, or and you start just going you're just watching body language. Yeah.
Now you were doing that, but I think that you said that your kids were doing that as well. So they, they could tell that things were going to happen before you could tell, and they had a safety plan in place.
Oh, definitely, 110%. And feel like the worst mum in the world.
I'm just going to put it out there. You're not.
Oh, thank you. No, but you do. You feel like the worst mum in the world, exposing him to this. But there's so many different factors of, okay, if you do leave, then I'm not going to be there to protect him when they see him. What state of mind is he going to be in? There's just so many factors, or even just having the security and safety for him. Like many nights we slept in my car because we'd had to flee the house because he was so angry, and we could get away that one time, But yeah, it's funny because my eldest boy, he's definitely been here before. He's an old soul. And he could read his dad the minute he walked in the door.
Yeah. And
it was funny because I could see him looking for the body language. My middle boy is a free soul, that one. He's just he'll just come up while everything's happening and just ask a question. Can I have an apple? He's definitely a free soul, that one, and love him for
that.
it.
You're totally
me
oblivious
too.
to what's going on.
That's me as a child, I'm sure. I look at him and I think, oh my goodness. And my daughter, she was only a baby and she just wouldn't leave me, and she cried all the time and she wouldn't go to anyone else. And but what the saddest thing is when it was all happening, and quite often Adam would leave the house after, he's lost his crap, or he's just had enough, or can't deal with his anger anymore. My eldest boy, who would have gathered all the children and put them into his bed, and they would have sat in the dark quietly, then came out once all the chaos and the noise was over, and he would clean up, or he would clean me up.
Oh.
And, this boy is like such an innocent child, and yet he's being exposed to this and just wanting to help. And, many of the 7 years I've had people come and say, judge or, whatever. And I just say, at the end of the day, I did what I could do. And my kids, all three, but both my boys have not one violent bone in their body. Yeah. They're the most compassionate, caring. They respect me. And I've always been open with them. Yeah. Totally. And I just think you just do what you need to do. And they're your kids, and you know them better than anyone else, and you just do what's right for you and your family. Don't listen to what other people are saying or judging you or making comments, because no one knows you or your kids and the relationship that you guys have together.
Yeah. And look, I mean, sitting here listening to you talking about it, and your eldest was he was a baby. I mean, he was upper primary school when he was doing this.
Well, he was actually, I would probably say 4 or 5 once the abuse was constant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and his little brother, he protected him and loved him, and then a little girl, and so he became the protector, I think, in his mind.
Yeah.
Which is really sad, but he's a good kid, and you do what you need to do, don't you?
That's it. And that's not in any way minimizing what any of you went through. You did what you needed to do to survive at the time.
Oh, correct. And what tools I had at the time, I did my best. And the support that I had, and mentally, emotionally, and also maturity is a big thing, because I was only young. Like, I look back at it now and I think in those years I've matured so much, and I would maybe have dealt with the situation a bit differently, but then would have I,
It's very difficult to think, like to actually be able to think and function when you're in a state of fight and flight for any period of time, but for a prolonged period of time.
Yes. With no sleep, because you're sleep deprived, because you'd be asleep and he's not home yet, and you're just waiting for that roller door to go up to either listen how he's going to walk in, and this is the silly thing, the steps, the breathing, so much more than your awareness of somebody else's presence becomes so heightened. And within those first few minutes of how he put down his keys or how he drove in the carport, it would then put me into, okay, like, this is where
I'm okay, or I'm really
we're
not
in for a night.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing was to protect the kids from it.
Yeah.
So quite often I would take it or try to keep it in our room. But once he worked out what I was doing, he then started dragging me into the kids' room. Or he would bring the kids out to watch, because he knew that was hurting me, because I was protecting my kids.
Yeah.
And that's where I really knew, obviously, things aren't quite right.
Yeah. And that's it. Like, I'm not condoning any violence at all, so I don't want that to be how this is heard. There are times when people are in a moment of anger where you can, there's no thought in what they're doing. Now, that doesn't mean that it's okay. But
that's right. I mean, I've been there where you slam down the keys when you're so angry, or you slam that cupboard shut.
You snap, or whatever that might be.
We're all human. Yeah.
But that's calculated.
And it's at somebody else's cost.
Yeah. To bring... So no thought about how this is actually impacting the children, just how can I make this more traumatic for her?
Yeah. And it really did. It went on and on. Like, even I never knew what gaslighting was. Never, ever.
I think you found out the hard way, didn't you?
I only found out like after.
Yeah.
And I was just reading something going, oh my goodness, this is my life. It was my life,
Yeah.
And then like rumours started, and he started contacting parents at the school, and and telling him that I'm a prostitute, and, like minimising me, not just behind closed doors at this stage, because he'd been exposed.
Yeah.
He's taking it out within my own little community, because that's the school, and my kids' sports was my only community.
And part of that, by going behind your back and telling the school, it's undermining your credibility.
Yeah.
So really it's not about the fact that he's done this. You're not to be believed. You're not reliable. You're not credible.
Yeah.
So then you went back.
Well, that's the thing. I didn't go back. I was forced back. So let me just go back to where we were. So I was at my parents' for 4 weeks, and my dad said pretty much you have to go back and face the music. And there's no way I was going back, because in this time of the 4 weeks, I had been trying to seek help outside my own ability, or my, and I didn't have much family support. So I ended up, I was going back and forth to the courts trying to find out what I can do, or I was trying to find somewhere for me and my kids to stay.
And the courts, they were super helpful?
No, that's another day's talk. It's just that's another total topic. But now what had actually happened in between, so the 24 hours, I went up to the police station and met this beautiful lady, and she just brought me into this room, and, you know, I'm in a state of shock, and I was so scared, and I just begging for someone to help me type thing, and she sat down and she told me my story before I even told her what I was here for. She said word for word of what's, you know, and it was so
validating.
Yeah, but it was really like, wow, like this is. But she did say to me, you need to go home and you need to pack your kids and your stuff, all your personal belongings that are important to you, because he will break everything. And I was like, okay, then you need to go to the bank and you need to take out enough money, like what's, you know, it was a joint bank account, take out half. Yeah. Be fair, don't do anything the wrong way. Take out half. Now, there was $60,000 sitting in our account. And then the third thing was to just have no contact or whatever else. So I went home, packed all my personal belongings and took all my breakables. Oh, that was the other one, sorry. Go to Centrelink and declare that you're separated. They will be able to help you with some form of assistance. Yeah. Okay. So I went to Centrelink. I got all my belongings, but I could not take the money out of the bank account because I had been so abused for such a long time. I knew that would make him angry, and I knew he could find me if he wanted to find me. Yeah. And I've taken away his kids from, even though they're not important to him. It's something that he can use against me, and I knew he'd find me, so I did. And I ended up couch surfing probably for the next 3 months. But funds ran out and I couldn't financially support myself, and I had gone through lawyers to try and get some of that money out of the bank, but it had all just disappeared.
It's all gone. Yeah. And
I had no financial support. So I was forced to go back. And the minute I walked in the door, he said to me, "You're not leaving this house alive."
Yeah. How did that, I mean, look, I can imagine, but how did that make you feel?
I knew, I've known this man for 18 years by this stage. I knew that he was telling me the truth. Yeah. And all I started doing was preparing really for sorting the kids. And I felt I had no other support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How hard was it walking back into that house?
It was harder closing the door. It was harder because it was the house that I'd made home. Yeah. So, you know, that moment I closed the door and I walked out, I looked at it and it's my home. Yeah. You know, it's got my kids' baby photos around. It's got the colour blanket that I've chosen because, you know, we all love those things, especially as women. I think it's a comfort zone, and I had to walk out. But walking back in felt really cold and
it's really hard. Just, you know, it's just stuff. It doesn't matter, but it does.
It's comforting, and I think I'm a very sentimental person as well. But when I got back, the house wasn't like it was. You know, there was all just things broken, and the kids' photos down, and a month's worth of dishes for me to clean. You know, that's it stunk. Like, he's obviously had a lot of parties there, and I believe there was like women coming and going, and it's just one of those dirty feelings that I don't want to be here, but I have to be here because where can I go? Yeah. And what can I do?
So how long were you there before you finally managed to leave?
Well, everything escalated from there. I was tortured in my room for 3 days.
Oh my God.
I was tied up and tortured for 3 days. I was kept away from my kids. I couldn't see my kids, and I remember my 2 boys would just be banging on the door, crying, screaming for me. And I'd try to climb through the windows. They just wanted a hug, and you know, you can't cry or you can't howl like you want to howl. There's that natural instinct that you just want to. You just do what you need to do, and I took it, and he went on. I'm only assuming because I don't use drugs. My friend circle, they're all family orientated, and I'm only assuming by this stage he was on a bender for 3 days. So very unpredictable. I was raped many times throughout that time. I wasn't, no water, no food. It was just, it was horrific, and things done to me in a sexual manner that was just, animals wouldn't even do it to them to eat their, you know. Yeah, it was really hard, but I don't know. I think I just lived in this zone of just existing by this stage, and felt like I can't get out.
Shut down emotionally and just go through the motions.
So one night, it escalated so badly that it went on for hours, and you know, it choked me until I couldn't breathe in front of the kids, and then I'd drop to the floor unconscious, or he'd drag me into the kitchen and just sling me around and jump on me and just do horrific things. And then I seen a knife come out of the dishwasher, and I just thought, this is it. And I was telling my kids, just go into the room, close the door, Mummy loves you.
Do not come back in.
Yeah, they knew, and I was even thinking of saying my last goodbyes.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. I don't want you to come in. I don't want you to see what's going to happen here, and I don't want you to be the one to find me.
No. Yeah. And anyway, he dragged me out the front, which I don't know why, by my hair, and now there's security cameras that have actually shown me this footage, and it's sickening to actually see somebody treat another person like this. And he smashed my head 40 times onto the brick pavers, and he jumped on me like I was an animal, like he was trying to squash me as an ant. And I tried to fight back. I threw punches, and I tried to kick and scream and get out, and luckily the neighbours had heard, and the police arrived, and he got a 72-hour move on notice.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Why would...
No, but it even gets better. At this point, the police were actually allowing him to get into his car. And
what?
Yeah, and drive away. And I just, after, you know, it's probably 2 hours by the time they've got him down the driveway taking his things, and the paramedics and the police are with me inside, and they're trying to settle the kids. Strangers are trying to settle my children at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's not going to help. But anyway, thank you. Yeah. I do appreciate it. And you know what? This one police officer was absolutely amazing. He sat with me and he said to me, look, you need to leave. And I said, I know, I want to, I can't, I've tried. And he goes, what do you mean you've tried? And I paramedic lady, I said, there's a box there. And I got this box together, and it had every incident that had happened, and photos and evidence and things that I'd done to try and get out. And I just tipped it up, and I said, this is how much I've tried. And he could see the desperation in my face. And he said to me, DCP's on its way, just so you know.
Oh, my God. So then on top of everything, you're worried you're going to lose your babies.
Yeah, he just said, if you stay here,
they're going to take
their children are gone. And I said, I'm not ever letting anyone take my children. Yeah. And then within that moment, it's all a blur, but I remember this lovely lady, which I'm assuming she was some form of crisis care or whatever, and she just gave me all the information, and that's what I mean. It's just being aware of the help.
If you've listened to previous episodes of The Hidden World of Women, you have no doubt realised that these shows don't come with any kind of direction. So it's a conversation, and it's getting to hear people's stories. So often I'm as surprised as anybody listening to find out where the episodes actually end up. So Cassie was so incredibly generous with what she shared, and going into so many different facets of her experiences, that there was just no way we could fit it all into one episode. So what we've done is we've split it. So I've cut it where we're talking about Cassie leaving, and then I'm going to pick it up for the next episode to finish Cassie's story to where she is now. Thanks very much for joining us for this episode today, and thank you again to Cassie for sharing such incredibly personal information. And I would encourage people to share this episode, because we don't talk about family and domestic violence, and we don't talk about sexual violence, and it's really important that people know that they're not alone. So whether you know somebody who may find this useful, or whether you don't, I guess you don't. If you share it, you don't know who may need to hear it and who may actually hear it. So we look forward to joining Cassie to finish off this episode for episode 44. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of A Hidden World of Women, a podcast brought to you by Women's Health and Wellbeing Services. For more information on the services we offer, head to whws.org.au or Women's Health and Wellbeing Services on YouTube and social media. Looking forward to the next episode where we uncover the hidden world of women.